Hey everyone, and welcome to the Jedi Trials. My name is D House, and trying out this YouTube thing, trying to produce some more content for all of our supporters out there. And I'm new to this; I'm figuring this out too. But thanks for joining me. For this first video, I thought we'd do something a little bit different and focus on a card I'm really excited about coming in Way of the Force, and that is the man himself, good old Captain Rex, the clone captain. If you listen to the Jedi Trials podcast at all, and if you don't, I'd love for you to listen to it. You know I love Red Heroes, but Red Heroes have never really had a moment outside of maybe Pomaz having some time, and Rose has popped up in a few decks here and there for vehicles, but nothing real strong on just the Red Hero, let's run into the battlefield, guns a-blazing moment. And so I'm so excited about Rex and the potential he has to really bring Red Heroes up to the competitive level. And at first glance, looking at his die size, you just see consistency, right? You have one range, two indirect, a focus, resource, and a blank. And it's kind of interesting because it makes me think about old Leia's die from Awakenings, because she has one range, two range for a resource, a focus, resource, blank. But one, I think having a 2 indirect instead of a 2 range for a resource is way better. Even though it spreads it out, isn't focused, it's still just consistent damage. And then he's also 11-14 instead of 12-16 like Leia was, which is huge because then you can combine them with an Elite 16 like a Finn, or what I think will be better, 2 Clone Troopers, because you read his ability. Before you activate this character, you may spend 1 resource or spot a Clone Trooper to take control of the battlefield. So first of all, that's super thematic, right? Because Red Heroes, the military should care about the status of the battlefield. That's really great, but there's also a ton of effects now in the game that depend on you having control of the battlefield. And so being able to do this by either spending a resource or spotting a Clone Trooper is really great. I think specifically that's why I like 2 Clone Troopers with him. So you see his 2 buddies down here kind of flanking either side. I think, at least from first glance, for the cards that have been spoiled already, 2 Clone Troopers feels better. I know some people have been talking about adding yellow because yellow brings a lot of great stuff. I'm not denying that. It really does. But I think there's some really cool red synergy, which I want to talk about in this video. The Clone Trooper has very similar die to Rex. They are clones, after all. 1 range, 2 indirect, resource, blank. But the ability is after you activate this character, you may reroll this die, or if you control the battlefield, you may reroll one of your character dice. So with Rex, you're going to have control. So if the clone rolls out a 2 range or a 2 indirect and you really like it, you can always reroll one of Rex's die as well, which speeds up your turn, saves cards in your hand, just adds a lot of value. 8 health on an 8 cost character, super great, love it. So I think this combination right here is going to be super solid for those who share my affinity for Red Heroes. There's a few cards that right away you think, hey, controlling the battlefield is going to be really valuable. That being classic Dug In, play only if you control the battlefield, give 3 shields to your characters. Again, just really good value. Defensive position, possibly one of the greatest removal cards in the game. If you control the battlefield, remove all of an opponent's dice showing a value of 2 or higher. This card wins games. When they God roll and you just drop this and remove, 2 dice, it feels good. But sometimes you're removing 3 or 4 dice or more. Extremely strong and really great when you're able to pull it off. And then it's kind of little brother that isn't as great. Superior position, play only if you control the battlefield, remove a die. So not as good, obviously, but still versatile in that for the most part you're going to have the battlefield and you can just remove a die. It's not conditional on like flank, making sure you don't activate yet, or something like that. So I love these 3 cards going into a Rex deck. And then you also have battlefields with effects that, when you have the battlefield like Forward and Nexus, to have Guardian to keep Rex alive, spread out that damage, really solid. You have Imperial Academy, while you control his battlefield, after you activate a support, you may reroll its die. This requires a specific deck build, which I'll get into in just a second. Same with Weapons Factory Alpha. While you control the battlefield, the cost of the first vehicle you play each round is decreased by 1. So those are kind of some good stats effects. We also had Bendu's Lair, spoiled, which is interesting. Battlefield with the die, with a great die, honestly. where you know that for the most part you'll be claiming quickly because, again, with the red effects and hit and runs and things like that, you'll be able to get it. But even if you don't get it, if your opponent still claims, all you got to do is activate Rex and remove the die if they roll this out first. So you should be safe, is what I'm saying, if you have this as your battlefield. I want to try it. I haven't tried it yet. I want to give it a go because, again, that die looks great. And to run with a sort of a 5-die start if you win the roll-off seems really good as well. Now, there's a couple different ways to build this, and I won't get into this one quite yet. But there's a couple different ways to build it. One is if you just want to go straight guns and just straightforward, guns blazing, let's get this going. I think there's a standard build right here of you have your holdout blasters for redeploy, your DH-17s, and your E-11s for the redeploy as well. These are great. They'll be solid with your Rex and Clone. They'll pair up really well. And I think you kind of start with 2 copies of each of these if you want to go the gun route. There's also like Pose Blaster, which you might want to do. But I think these are kind of your standard ones. The ones that I'm not saying you have to run necessarily, but are interesting. One is Hidden Blaster. Again, the ambush, remove a shield, the dice, are going to go well together. I don't like that it doesn't have redeploy at a 2 cost. So you can run this. A280 is the same way. I think A280, the redeploy red weapon. So it's okay. It still could be good. And then the ones that are kind of outliers, which you're gonna have to feel out for yourself, is the camouflage rifle. The reason I include this is you've got a 3-for-1, a +3, and then that special, which again is 3 damage if you control the battlefield. So could be great, but a 3 cost without redeploy worries me a lot. But could be a good thing. Also, autocannon has some huge sides that could pair well, but again, a 3 cost without redeploy. And then 2 pay sides I don't love. So I'm probably going to steer away from this, but it is still a great option. So if you want to go the gun route, there's some great options there. But another build I'm excited to try is maybe a little bit more on the support side, specifically so that we can abuse partnership and wingman. So before I get into the supports, I want to explain this. Wingman's a card that we didn't really see a lot of. It was released in Spirit Rebellion, and there just wasn't a lot of like red character synergy. On the villain side, there probably was a little bit. Like I ran 2 stormtroopers and 2 TIE pilots for a while, and it was fun. And you could burst out a bunch of damage and a bunch of dice. But I love the idea of playing wingman on your clone troopers, so that when you play hit and run, which is one of the best cards for red heroes, to activate Rex, you could roll out both clone troopers. You've got endless rerolls with those guys, and if you've got some of these attached, just think about the damage that you could just cheat out first round and just kill a character super quick. I have tested this already. It works fantastic. And I'm excited to keep trying it out. I think anytime you can burst out that dice is really strong. Blue Hero just got one, a Loaf Wolf Bond, that does a similar thing, but again, hit and run makes this lets you cook with gas, so to speak. Partnership is a similar idea, which is why I'm sort of interested to try a support build where you activate Rex if you have the wingman out. You can spend that additional resource to resolve your damage before your opponent can do anything about it. So, but if you want to run partnership, you want to do the cheating thing, you have to run some supports. Now these are two cost supports, which I like. This one is, lookout post. You can only play if you control the battlefield, but has some huge sides, +2, +3, +3, and you've got those indirect sides on your character dice. You have it on the E11 as well. So this could be solid because you're going to have the battlefield. And then Mortar Team, again, 4 damage sides, really great. And then if you control the battlefield, you can actually resolve it as range damage instead, which will be good for your modified range sides. So you could partnership with Mortar Team and Rex, and if you have Wingman, you roll out your clones too, and you just, burst the damage down. It is indirect, so it'll work a lot better once they're down characters, but it is interesting. And I threw Planetary in here too because again, with hit and runs and partnerships, Planetary Uprising again did work in the Poe Maz meta and had some interesting uses with like Snap Wexley decks, but it sort of disappeared for a while. And so I'm thinking this might be its opportunity to come back with some of the speed that red heroes are going to be able to have. It doesn't, like on the rule side, it doesn't mean if you activate Rex, you get this trigger. I'm just saying with hit and runs and partnerships, you might be able to get this planetary trigger pretty easily, especially, and also these free rerolls means you're not taking extra actions to reroll your dice. So that's why I included Docking Bay, even though you don't get necessarily an advantage from controlling it like you would with like Fort and Nexus. Docking Bay has always been good. I didn't put Honor Guard out here, but you get Honor Guard, which I call Zombie Guards, when you get to bring them back a lot with Docking Bays. But if you decide to go the support route with Lookout Post, Mortar Team, Planetary Uprising, playing these for 1 at the end of your turn is just wonderful. Just, again, great value, cheat out your dice, really strong. So right now I'm actually leaning toward the Docking Bay version just to get that Honor Guard synergy. I also played Drop Zone for a while, which is another red support like Planetary that you can check out. And the problem I think for red heroes for a long time has been the removal suite. So you've had defensive position, great, but not a lot of great options. And so these are kind of 2 options that we've had. Rebel Assault, 0 cost, but only if you have 1 or more dice showing range damage, remove an opponent's die not showing damage. And then Suppression, remove 1 of your red dice showing range damage, and remove an opponent's die. These, again, haven't gotten a ton of use because red heroes have not been great. But with so many range sides and with potential like +2s that might be hanging out, not doing something, I think both of these become a lot better. Suppression becomes a little bit better. It's hard to give up a dice, especially when you compare this to a card like Guard, where you remove a melee side and you remove that many dice. So a +2 turns into removing 2. This is just 1. It's fine, whatever. But I still think it'll be good. And then Rebel Assault, I think, is actually a lot better now than it used to be in Spirit Rebellion because all of the specials out there. You think about Yoda specials and Hondo specials and Price specials, which is going to be quite big in this next meta. I think Rebel Assault is going to be super solid, and free removal is fantastic. So I actually think these 2 cards just went up in value for being free and for the meta that we're going into. So anyways, I put Price here because I think Price is going to be a very great character coming out in Way of the Force because of that second line of her special, that if you control the battlefield, you may resolve that die, increasing its value by 1. So being able to steal that with Rex, say, no, Price, you don't get that battlefield effect, is going to help incredibly against these Price Kylo, Price Fifth Brother, Price Cad Bane, whatever she decides to pair with. So I think Rex will be a great, Mike said this on a recent episode, Rex is going to be a great counter to Price decks. So that's all I got. I'm theory crafting right now. I'm building decks. I would love to see what you're coming up with. Again, I know bringing yellow is interesting, but I am a red hero at heart, and so I want to see red heroes do really well. I'm also going to try Finn with Rex and see if we can be even faster. So, but that's what I got. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, check out the Jedi Trials on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll see you in the next video.